All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our panel about NFTs place more power in players' hands. And we have a great panel here today, and we're going to start introduce ourselves, what we work on in our project. So I guess I'll kick off. I'm the CEO of Enter Interactive, and we develop a game called My Neighbor Alice. It's a fully decentralized builder MMO with focus on resource gathering, crafting, and creative expression. So players in the game, and we call them neighbors, build their own virtual lands, meet up with other neighbors, they explore, they do fun daily activities, quests, they can also integrate and interact with brands and earn rewards along the way. We have a team of around 60 people right now, and we're in full production. In 2021, we became the launch pool project of the year on Binance, and we've so far launched 2 alpha seasons, and we're currently working on the 3rd. So stay tuned for more news. All right, over to you, Josh. Tell me about yourself and the project you're working on.
Hello, everybody. My name is Josh Morton. I am the CPO with Apollo Entertainment. We are developing a third-person action RPG roguelike game. My personal background was in the traditional AAA space for 15 years, and I've been here in the blockchain space for 5 years. And I'll let Nick speak a bit more about the company itself.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? Thank you for being here at 10:30 on Friday after I'm sure what was a couple of exciting and very exhausting days at the convention. Those of you who are here are the real troopers, so thanks for being here. Thanks for joining this panel. My name's Nick Frontera. I am the CEO and co-founder of Apollo Entertainment. We are the studio behind the Satoshiverse. The Satoshiverse is a blockchain-themed superhero universe. We've been building it since October of 2020. It started as a collaboration between ourselves and Jose Delbo, who is one of the earliest comic artists in the space. He spent 60 years working for DC and Marvel Comics, and then essentially retired to become a crypto artist. And at the age of 87, we developed together our character Satoshi the Creator, which was one of the first Bitcoin superheroes. From that point on, we've been developing the Satoshiverse for the last 2 years. We've done comic art collectibles. We're building our game. Across our collections, we have over 75,000 unique holders, and really just an incredible community that's super excited about, what the future of comic IP in the space can be. So, we're just excited to keep talking to people, building with our community. And I know this topic, this panel is going to be full of really cool topics. So again, thank you guys for joining.
Hi, my name is Colin Helm. I'm the founder and CEO of the Caesarverse, and we build historically accurate open world MMO online experiences. I guess our mission could be gamifying education. So we also have an accompanying educational tool for professors to build out course curriculum and therefore replace traditional textbook reading assignments or other in-class assignments with video games for a more immersive and complete learning environment about the history of ancient Rome.
Thanks a lot, guys. A lot of interesting stuff being built. Let's kick off with the first question, and I'm gonna direct it to you, Josh, because I think it's very relevant, also because of your background in AAA gaming as well. So it's a basic question, but how do NFTs give players more control of their in-game assets compared to traditional gaming?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us here, being here, probably know some of the obvious ones. Player ownership, being able to move your assets freely through the markets. But some of the reasons why it's important, I think, that we give players control and why they don't have it now in the traditional space is because of legal ramifications to holding those assets. And if that AAA company is a custodian for something that is of value and they shut it down, they could get sued by their players. So I think it's important to, as an industry, to move some of this control into the players' hands so they can then take advantage of using these, across other titles, across other platforms, in other spaces. I mean, I think there's a lot of things we need to explore even outside of games. I think it's not, this opens it up to just this convergence of technology that we have. And, even after the original game that is centralized dies, if you have control of an asset, that's part of your identity, part of your brand, and then it theoretically can be used in other ways, and it doesn't die on the servers of the developer when they have to shut down because they can't keep the lights running. So that just, I think, opens up the door for the evolution of these brands and the collections the players have, how all of these things work together. So personally, I think that's one of the more important things.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, having been kind of on both sides of the equation for the last several years as a collector, but also as a developer within this space, I think one of the things that's special about Web3 is how the communities form even prior to having a real product, right? So you have such a interdynamic between the developer and the player, the developer and the collector, where the collectors are invested in an IP before that IP really has materialized in a lot of cases. And so, I think when we say putting the power in the player's hands, it's not just, the technical power, right? The rights that we're creating through these contracts and whatnot, but it's also, an influential power over the course of development, the different things that you can see, when you're in a Discord server and you say, hey, I really like this, or I really don't like this, what the developers are incentivized to do because they're getting that super early feedback, because these are people who paid a couple $100s for an NFT before that NFT was really anything, and just embracing your idea. So I think that's special, and I really do think that creates a different dynamic between the customer and the developer in this space.
Yeah, certainly. I'd say it also helps the developers because it provides feedback from the audience throughout the development cycle. So not only do you engage the customer on another level, but you're also able to further improve the product as a developer.
No, for sure. And I mean, I do like the fact that you touch upon as well, Josh, but I also really like the potential of interoperability within IPs, that it can transition beyond games, and it could be physical experience or whatnot that's connected to that brand. I think that's really exciting. And also that your assets can live on. And when it comes to our case with our game, we're doing it fully decentralized with all game on chain. So it has the potential to live on forever and someone can take it on. All right, let's move on to the next question and this one will go to you, Colin, first. Do NFTs have the potential to disrupt the power dynamics between game developers and players? And if so, how? We already touched a little bit upon it, but do you want to go further into that?
Yes, thank you. They certainly do. No longer are gamers beholden to a user licensing agreement. They actually have true ownership of the assets in their game, and it's only compounded with the interoperability factor, where your assets are not only usable in one game, but therefore in other games. And I think that really pushes the developers to continue to create quality products, because just because they've created an initial collection does not mean that those items are limited only to that use case. If you look at a Web 2 game, you can generally sell cosmetics and you've got the money regardless. But here they have to continue to innovate, continue to push, and if not, the players can take those assets elsewhere. I think it really empowers gamers in that regard.
Yeah, I think, from that perspective, I've seen a lot of different approaches to that, right? You have some projects that are very, trying to provide value through the IP itself. So you see kind of that full decentralization of the content. You see some projects that are, really trying to decentralize aspects of the ownership layer, right? Where it may not be the IP that's providing the value, but it might be the transferability of the assets themselves. You're seeing interoperability happen quite a bit now through partnerships with other projects. And so, there's a lot there. I always, when I think about this question, really, for me, NFTs are very much a player empowering technology. There's something that's built to shift that balance, right? And so, you know, a lot of times when we're talking about this, we do Twitter Spaces and all that, and this question comes up. You know, for me, the most important thing is kind of creating that sustainable balance between developer and player, right? You have to create the incentives on both ends where you're giving, there's a give and take, right? Because the developers, a lot of AAA studios are very comfortable staying in that bubble of, you know, we provide the content, you consume the content, right? But with NFTs and those downstream sales, there has to be that back and forth between developer and player. Otherwise, like you said, the business model fails, right? So it's really forcing developers to rethink how that progresses, not just from the point of sale, but continuing down that chain into the downstream sales and those secondary sales.
Yeah, it's more of a partnership, a long-term partnership that you're creating with your players rather than they just being consumers.
Yeah, and I said another thought. I mean, it kind of makes you need to re-ask the question, you know, what is a game? With just making new experiences that are kind of dissecting what a game is. You know, traditional games are just, it's all built by that one developer. But now that you're kind of extracting this component that, you know, that they're controlling, it's like if you go to a racetrack and you bring your own car, they're providing the track, you know, they set the rules, but you're coming with your own car. And so that just experience can be that the developer's creating the mechanics, game systems, you know, some sort of foundational base for, you know, what these assets potentially could evolve into. And, you know, it could just be more than just something that's a 3D model. You know, it's going to have metadata and other stuff that backs itself up, that continues to evolve. And so I think we really need to go back to the table and, like I said, ask that question. And this will help us to bring new game experiences, you know, not just make existing ones better, but just totally new design ideas. So it's just a new tool in the toolbox for game designers. And I think it's really exciting stuff to think about.
And when it comes to game economies, how can NFTs help promote player-driven economies in gaming? And what implications does this have for game developers? Do you want to do a take on that, Nick?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. You know, I got really excited. So I joined the NFT space in 2017 and came through from the gaming side. I was an IP lawyer before that. And I got really excited about the potential of these decentralized player economies, right? I spent my entire life playing games like RuneScape and Diablo and World of Warcraft, and just really these hardcore RPGs where you sit at your computer for as many hours as, you know, your parents or at some point not your parents will let you be, and you just dump tons of time into these games. You find items, you really progress, you grow attached to your characters, and then there's no outlet. There's no, you know, secondary market, or there are, but you're at risk of, you know, violating the terms of service, losing your assets, you know, jeopardizing the thousands of hours of work you put into the game. And so, you know, when we started building Satoshi's Legions, we really felt that player economies and this concept of play to earn didn't need to be a new thing, right? I think we were trying to put a label on something that's existed in really, really well-polished form for at least 20 years within the Web 2 gaming space. And so rather than, you know, reinvent the wheel, we looked at it and said, look, what has been working? What do gamers enjoy? You know, and some aspects were the progress, right? Like leveling up your characters, really, you know, the unique decisions that you make along the way, how you're investing the resources that you find, right, within the game, how you are collecting items, what items you collect, the stats of those items. And we said, look, Web3 doesn't need to change all of that, right? That's the thing that the gamers like about the game. What Web3 could potentially do is allow us to take that player economy that already exists and already developed, you know, within a great game, and decentralize it, to open the rails of transferability, as we were saying before, to really create a system where in the design of the game, you're taking into account the fact that people are going to be buying and selling these things. People are going to be buying other people's characters, and progress is going to be something that you can acquire. So, I think one of the risks for Web 2 games that were built around a model of a closed system where you can't transfer things is that the design also takes that into account, right? But if you're going to build a game where you know from the beginning that it's going to be an open economy, that it's going to allow players to transfer assets, you really have to think about avoiding some of the pitfalls of pay-to-play systems and giving users advantages just because of their resources. So you start to balance. It's almost like we talk about game balance and balancing from a gameplay perspective. You have to balance differently from an economy perspective as well, which has been a fun challenge for us in building this game and embracing the things that work within Web 2 game economies, but thinking about how does Web 3 provide opportunities to open that up quite a bit.
Do you want to add on to that?
I was going to say one thing is the other thing we need to be mindful of there is disincentivizing the bad actors. Now that this is a new system and we're opening this up, it's something that we're seeing a lot now that can ruin those experiences. And I think that's what, people are really hesitant to come into this space is being open to attacks in various ways. And so we've addressed that, that was a problem, years ago in DeFi, and then new tools and new smart contracts and new things were created to disincentivize, bad actors. I mean, that's what blockchain is, like by having, the way that the protocol works. And so we need to be thinking about those things with games as well, and just to make sure that with this new economy, that it doesn't ruin the experience and that enhances it.
What's your take, Colin?
Well, when you're looking at the economy of a Web3 game, it varies greatly from a Web2 game in many ways. And in some ways, it's really opened up a lot of possibilities for us. So, for example, we have like in-game commodity trading markets where you have different resources that are tied to different tokens and are tradable and mineable in different ways. Obviously, that's something that is not fathomable 15 years ago, but Web3 opens the door for that. However, we're also you have to balance the way you bring in tokens so that way you can remove the pay-to-win aspects as well, because that is one threat that asset ownership does bring to the table. However, I believe it's an inherent right to own your own assets, and therefore, crafting systems and other mining systems like that do contribute to the in-game economy.
All right, we talked a little bit about the general things that's always talked about, but if we look at other things and other ways, what can NFTs enhance for the gaming experience for players beyond just ownership and just monetization of in-game assets? What is the other added benefits NFTs can give? Any takers?
Yeah, so for me, it's making games more. And so, to me, part of what this technology is doing is it's going to, like I mentioned earlier, further kind of push along the convergence of a lot of our technologies. So, I'm just looking forward to kind of continuing to brainstorm and find new ways to bring in things from the physical space, things from just non-game spaces, whether I bring my game stuff into some other experience or I bring, something from out there into my game. By me having, control of my stuff and then where that goes digitally, I just think it's just going to open up a lot more doors, in the Internet of Things and, my devices around my house or my car or, I think there's going to be things we haven't really thought about yet that as this, matures, it's going to be really exciting. And there's going to be scary stuff too. We can talk about AI and, Terminators and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, I think what it'll do is make it so that all of these separate silos of experiences are going to become more a part of this kind of just general experience, and that our life is basically just going to be convergence of digital, physical, metaverse, social, games, art, whatever. Like we're just kind of pulling it all together and figuring out ways to now like kind of cross-pollinate and just do some stuff that we haven't really thought was possible before.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier as well, but I think definitely IP interoperability is going to be really interesting to go beyond gaming, and you can just form so much deeper relationships with the IPs or brands that you love. And I think there are definitely players out there that really can realize that if they choose to enter the unknown a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, like, I think, myself, 2017, I remember I was in a movie theater and I saw Ready Player One for the first time. And I think it's been, I talk to a lot of developers and Ready Player One comes up a lot. But that idea of an open metaverse, right? That idea of a gamified, interconnected, world where we all kind of smoothly transact, that's not possible without infrastructure, right? You need infrastructure for the assets, you need infrastructure for the data, and you need a legal infrastructure. And so, without getting too much into the weeds on the legal infrastructure, back then I was working as an IP lawyer, and the light that clicked on in my head was NFTs create a certain tangibility for digital assets that didn't exist prior, right? Like Colin mentioned before, everything before that was an end user license agreement. You had a license to use IP within a closed system, and that was it. What NFTs did was they created a tangible property, a tangible piece of property that could be separated from the IP itself. And while that's kind of a abstract concept, I always like to illustrate it with a t-shirt, right? I have this t-shirt, I could have a Metallica logo on this t-shirt, and because of the legal infrastructure that exists, I could walk around, I could go anywhere. I could go to a mall with this t-shirt, I could be on camera with this t-shirt, and all the IP rights are kind of inherent to that because the infrastructure's been built for physical assets. What NFTs have the potential to do is allow us to take all that infrastructure that's already been developed for physical assets and licensing and everything there and apply it to digital assets, which is, to me, kind of an understated but extremely significant part of what NFTs bring to the table. And I think what that allows us to do is start to see that cross-platform pollination, right? That infrastructure that we need to have this open metaverse, to have gamified experiences within these digital worlds. And so I get really excited about that. I look at the future with AR, with everything. I know we'll talk a little bit more about this, but the rails that are currently being built are what's going to drive that in 3 to 5 years, and we're going to really see all that come together.
So we have 2 minutes left. Do you want to add one last comment to that? And
yeah, I also think it's going to allow, through AR, as you touched on, essentially a gamification of life. You're going to see NFTs expand far beyond the digital world and the phygital world. We're seeing some phygital items now, but I think you're going to see games become lifestyles more so than like a side hobby, where people who are really dedicated to a game will be able to really engage with that brand on a multitude of levels in every aspect of their life.
all right, final thing. What in this space are you really excited about? Can be a game, a project, new tech.
Yeah, I mean, I'm stoked about what we're building. I won't touch on it too much. I'd encourage everyone to check out the socials. We've been building for a while now, but I'm personally very excited about AR. I think AR is going to kind of change the way that we interact and really be the next paradigm shift in retail, in experiential, entertainment. And I think NFTs are going to be the base layer for all of that. So, next 2 to 5 years, I think that's where we're going to be seeing incredible advancements.
For me, it's really education. We're focused on that, and I think the Web3 technology it's massively underutilized in these productive educational ways, and I cannot wait to see where education is in like 5 to 10 years using blockchain technology.
All right, I'll wrap up. I'm really excited to see the game that really will break through the masses and take this mainstream, and hopefully it will be my neighbor Alice.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
Great.
Thank you
all so much.